When did you start sending tapes to WWF and WCW?
I probably started, you know what, I wasn't as big on the tapes as showing up at the live events. I probably started in around 90, whenever they came to, I went to one in Bethlehem, and I got a dark match with Reno Riggins. And I was kind of surprised because I was at the point where I felt comfortable with my career. I felt like I could, you know, there was some of my peers were there by then. I was always intimidated when you're home watching it. I remember watching the Saturday night's main event from the nightclub I worked at. You're like, you know, that'll be me someday. Because all the guys were still like 10 years older than me.
Right.
You know, you're watching the Hogans and the year with the Savage and the Honky. And those characters were so huge. You were just intimidated by watching them. Not that they were great wrestlers. Back then, Vince created characters, which is still the golden age of wrestling. And you'd sit back and watch them, and you'd say, you know, I'll be there someday. I'll be there someday, right? And again, you know, you're watching these guys, and you just felt like you could, you know, you definitely would belong there. And I'm sorry, what was the second part?
When did you start sending tapes?
Okay, so with these guys, I just got to the point where I felt like it was my time. So I had to try with Reno Riggins, real smooth. I mean, everybody came in the back, everybody said it was real smooth, real smooth, real smooth. No blown spots, nice clean match back and forth. And they probably gave us like a good 8 to 10 minutes, but Reno was a great guy to work with, good little heel. I was a straight baby face. And, you know, it was good. It's just, like I said, there was no job there because I showed up unannounced.
Right.
They were always very nice. Trying to Philadelphia. I never went to those shows. Never went to the Philly shows. But it was just the, you know, it was Allentown. It was, you know, Bethlehem. It was Meadowlands, I want to say. Just a couple times, but they knew who you were by then.
Right.
They knew who you were just by how many guys were in that locker room that you've been down the road with already.
Mm-hmm.
And then it all happened for me when I was in Puerto Rico in '92. I was getting ready to leave there, and I sent my stuff just like handwritten, because I didn't have anything over there, no computer or anything in '92. Handwritten with some snapshots. And WCW called me in 2 days because I needed a tag team partner for Tom Zenk.
I was going to ask you, how were you contacted about going to WCW?
So when I got the call, again, you're like, I was planning on going home. I was there for about a year. It was an opposition company to Carlos Colon. It was called AWF back then. It was, you know, a lot of good names where, you know, they would bring in names on weekends and stuff like that. They had money behind it for a while, and then money started to dry up, so it was time to leave. I get the call from Magnum TA. He tells me right off the bat, he goes, I don't know what name we're going to give you. It looks like, you know, you look like Tom Zenk. You're looking for a tag team partner for him.
Right.
So they flew me in. I did my first match against Dallas Page on TV when Dallas and Vinny Vegas were putting us over every night. Every night. They were low card guys.
Right.
Until Bischoff started banging his wife, started banging Page's wife.
Right.
That's when Page got his big push, but that's besides the point for now. We'll get to that later. So Dallas had the first match, and the locker room was just you're in awe. In a way, kind of like at that point, I'm like, I fit in now. I just finally fit in. You had your, you know, I was close with Mick Foley. I was close with Raven. I was, you know, the Rick Rudes. All these guys I was with at one time or another, a lot, like 75% on the indie shows. You know, for the first, you know, you meet Ric Flair, you shake Ric Flair's hand. He was always a professional. I never had any negativity about. I mean, I always get along. I mean, I think everybody will say, real nice guy, that type of thing. I always wanted to get along. Everybody's like a brothership. Everybody gets along. You get your guys that hate each other. Hate comes from jealousy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My thing was, you would see guys, and the younger you are, you're saying, oh, this guy's a piece of shit. I'm a better wrestler than him. He's getting a bigger push. You're going to get that. I don't care if it's out here tonight in front of 100 people. Right. You're going to get that. You're going to get one guy that's jealous of another either because the money he's making or the push he's getting.
Right.
Okay? Back then, when I finally sat down that first time in WCW, I felt I belonged. And it was easy being in a tag team. Zenk was already established. He was, you know, he was in the business. He put a damper on things because he was so bitter. Right. I mean, to this day, he's like, I don't know recently, but I mean, after wrestling, he politicked to no end about on websites, just bitter. He had his whipping boys, his Vince McMahon, his Dustin Rhodes, his Bill Watt. I mean, he had his 10 guys that he just never, ever, ever would let go.
Right. He said, just going to ask about Tom Zenk. He said this about you and how you got into WCW on a radio show. He said about you, he said, he sent in photos of himself to the office. That's normal. What's not normal is that Bill Watts went up to all the female employees and showed them photos of you, asking, is this guy good looking? Is this guy good looking? And the women would say yes, and that's how Brandi got hired.
Well, that's good, though. I mean, I hope so, because it was more so that we had some resemblance. You want tag teams to have some kind of resemblance. Even back then, today, you know, they try something a little bit different. But, yeah, I mean, that was the thing where he was just so bitter. I mean, I came in there with so much aspiration, so much excitement, so happy just to be there. It was my first time. He's a good 10 years older than me. I mean, he always looked good, you know, but Tom, he already went through the ringer with the Martel saga that will never go away, okay? The Martel, all that dirty laundry that will never, ever, they were sleeping together and everything else. You know, that'll never go away, okay? The Buff Bagwell partnership, the Brian Pillman partnership. It was just one of those things where we were going to be a mid-level tag team. They know where you're going to be before you go in. That's the bottom line. They know how far you're going to get, and that's the bottom line. I mean, for me, it was funny because when I met with Dusty Rhodes, and I'm going to give you my best impersonation, he goes, kid, I thought, because I sent in a picture in a suit with the belt from Puerto Rico, the suit and tie, it's just a million. It was a great picture. And I figured if I'm going to get a job anywhere, this is going to get it for me, right? They like professionalism. They like well-dressed along the Ric Flair theory, right? He said, kid, I've seen your picture, kid. He said, we need a partner for the V-Man. And I said to myself, it's a good-looking kid here. He said, what are we going to call this kid? He looks like a mobster. He looks like a mobster. He looks like a mafia man in the picture. He looks like I think of guns. I think of shooting and bullets. I said, Johnny, man, look like a Johnny. He said, here it is. Johnny, too good-looking motherfucking gun, if you will, baby. Right? So, again, to that day, I'll never forget. Just one of those things where I think Zenk, telling Zenk the story, Zenk would be the one in the car when you're driving. He'd be the one doing the Dusty impersonation. That's the part that kept running through my head. Not hearing Dusty for the first time, me telling Zenk and Zenk saying it over and over again, where it just drilled in my head. But I like Tom. I really did. It's just such a shame at the part of his career that I met up with him. And he was just beyond bitter. And it just put a damper on things. I mean, there were other guys that were like bright-eyed too, like Buff Bagwell was there. He was cool. And again, I liked everybody. I really did. Mark Merrow was, you know, Johnny B. Bad was starting out. Everybody was cool. And Rob Van Dam, he was in and out, you know, not too long. The guy I loved the most was my best friend, was Too Cold Scorpio, because there's another guy. Came in, Vader got him in from Japan. Came in, loved him, loved every part of him, his attitude, every part of him. It's just one of those things where you can't get enough with certain people. And again, you're younger. The locker room was so much fun. But then you had, just like you said, the nepotism with Eric Watts. I had nothing personally against Eric. It's just the fact what he represented. And we're going back, we're talking 93 here, 94, 95. Eric was force-fed on the scene because who his dad was. He was the booker. Right. And Dustin Rhodes, to this day, I mean, I had respect for Dustin Rhodes. I don't think he ever rewrote the books on how to wrestle. His best thing was Gold Dust because it was a character. Yeah. He never was a great wrestler in WCW. When you're put in the ring with Dusty Rhodes, I mean with Ric Flair, and you're put in the ring with Barry Windham, and you're putting at the top, people almost have to accept you. Okay, you'll get those guys here and there that they're going to revolt against. Guys like Lex Luger was pushed at the top in WWF. Guys where they just turn their nose up. They know, fans know who the heck deserves it, who don't. It's just that was huge back then. Just the nepotism in both companies was just unbelievable on who you were, who your friends were, the politics. And I was able to accept it to the point, it was more so on WWF, where you go out and you know you had a good match. When you know the guys are pulling for you and you're hearing it, oh, you know, you bust your ass, good match, good match, good match. It Yeah, if you have a stinker, you know you had a stinker. You know you screwed up some spots or whatever else is one thing. But like with Scorpio, we did this. You know, I had a run with him. Actually, I can get to that later with WWE, but it's just one of those things you can't have a bad match with a guy that does the flips and the dives and this and that. And you being the heel, you're either catching them, throwing in your offense, you can't go wrong. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
When you were tagging us with Tom Zenk and became friendly or whatever, did he ever tell you whatever happened with him and Martel?
No, he would never touch on it. He would never, ever touch on it. It's funny because I would never ask him point blank, but he would again, it was just negativity. I mean, he would shoot Martel down to the point of, he could say, oh, he was Pat's boy or he was this guy's buddies, but it was never anything positive. I mean, Tom left there. He made it like it was a financial thing was the reason. Okay, he was saying Martel got X, Y, and Z dollars, and they wanted Tom to do all the same stuff and all the same level, what level you are on the card. And I said, you know what, but where it came down to being anything where the rumors got out, to this day, like I said, Martel, he's always been straight with me, and you never know what happens behind closed doors. I'll call in a second. I have no problem. I'll get to Pat Patterson in a second, but again, with Zenk, it was just bitterness. It was just such a shame because I liked Tom. It was just I wish I could have moved on with him to the point of, you know, even if like other federations, actually, which we did afterwards, but it was just, you know, again, he just looked at everything just miserable, miserable, and with just a heavy muscle relaxers and just, you know, what's been big in this business. Mm-hmm. The thing where I never fit in with the recreational drugs and with all the other stuff. I just said, God darn, he's another one of these guys where if you heard him end up on one of these obituaries, say, you know what? Not surprised. Right. God forbid, but I'm just saying. Like Johnny Grunge and Rocco Rock, two of my closest friends. And Johnny Grunge wasn't a surprise. It was just a matter of when. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he dropped off the face of the earth, who knows what he was doing in Georgia. When the call came across, I wasn't surprised. I mean, you're shocked, you're upset. Ted Penny was the one that just blew everybody away because Ted was as clean as a whistle. I mean, he was 51 years old, getting ready for his next push again. You know what I mean? I feel like I've almost stepped in his shoes because I'm 39 now. And been in the business 20 years, and all my peers are kind of disappearing. Right. And I want to just keep going as long as I can, that type of thing. So,
watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.